morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to VTV, the podcast. I'm your host, James. We have a few special guests in the building. We've got a guest co host today. His name is Adrian. I'll let him introduce himself.
How's it going? My name is Adrian Reddix. I work at the IT department. I also help VTV from time to time.
From time to time, more like a lot. We appreciate it too.
Well, I appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir. We have a VIP guest on the podcast today. And I say VIP because this is a important figure in our community. Chief Penny Jones, how are you today?
I am just wonderful. No complaints.
That's perfect. Let's get right to it.
Let me ask a question before you start.
Okay.
Not a lot of people know the real Chief Jones. Like how you graduated from Warren Central, right?
Negative. I
Was
am
it Vicksburg?
a Gator for life.
Was it? Oh, see, I didn't know. So you're a Vicksburg native. How do you go from high school to police chief police? Like how was the road getting there?
Mm-hmm.
Being the first woman to be chief, being the first black woman to be chief. Like how did you get to here?
So I can certainly say it was a long road. I had to stop at every stop sign, and I had to obey all the rules: the green light, the yellow light, and the red light.
And the purple one sometimes, whatever that light is.
Each, if that was there, I faced it. Basically, before I ever got into the law enforcement arena, I was actually going to school to be a nurse. I had a very good friend of mine ask me one day, "Hey, have you ever thought about being a police officer?" He said, "You just have the character and the demeanor of an officer." I said, "Well, it runs in my family." He said, "Well, let's see what we can do about that."
It runs in your family. Huh?
It does. I have an aunt that is actually a retired Detroit police officer.
Really?
And my dad was actually a police officer in Detroit
Really?
years ago. So we actually lived in Detroit in some of my younger years before we actually moved back to Vicksburg.
Yeah.
So, and I actually have other relatives, one in particular that used to work at the Jackson Police Department. So it's in our family. It's in the blood.
Yeah.
So you were sort of predestined for this role anyway.
Right.
I feel like I was.
Okay.
Yeah. So your training and things of that nature, where'd you, how did you get like into active police force?
Okay. So, of course, initially in the very beginning, you're a strenuous amount of PT, running, skipping, hopping, bumping, jumping. You got to make sure that you are ready for this particular job. So, in originally taking a PT test, and after I passed, it was on from there. But once I got into the police department, I knew one of the goals was to make a connection with victims of domestic violence. And that has probably been one thing that I've been involved in probably for the 24 years that I've been here. I've been an advocate for it. So, but being a police officer gave me the experience and the knowledge to, I guess, to say what that person may actually need to get them to a better place. So, and then all the training that I've had over the years, it's got me here today.
Yeah. So you worked your way through the ranks
Right.
from the ground up.
Right.
Gotcha.
From
And you sit
becoming,
on the domestic violence desk for years, right?
yes. I actually became a lieutenant over the domestic violence division. Prior to that, Sergeant Beverly Prentice, she was an advocate for domestic violence, and I think a lot of people remember
was a good
Sergeant
lady.
Prentice. Yes, she was one of the very few women in the 80s to be a police officer. So she taught me a lot while she was at the police department. I kind of depended on her for a lot of information that I have, not just for domestic, but just working cases in general. She had a wealth of knowledge when it comes to law enforcement.
I think we all stand on the shoulders of giants in that respect. I don't think we think of it as formal. Like you never know who's there to get you to that next level.
Right. In the very beginning, when I applied, you had Cole was here. He was still around.
It was cold.
Cole, he used to be a police officer,
Okay.
Vicksburg Police Department. He was actually killed several years ago, and we're working on his case still currently.
Really?
Also, you had Carl Bennett. You had Jimmy Sweet,
I've heard that name.
who's now retired. You had Janelle. You had Fanny Tomp. You had Sandra Williams.
I know Sandra Williams.
You had Randy Naylor. You had so
Naylor.
many of those guys who were pillars in the police department. And we just don't have that wealth of knowledge in the police department that we did,
Right.
back then.
But you're building
Yeah,
that right
we're
now.
building it. Right now, the police department, you got a young generation. So, well, of course, crime has changed and things have changed. So it's a difference in how we work at the police department now because of how things have changed.
So as far as recruiting, since we're talking about officers, like how I know it's difficult nationwide. There's no department in the country that doesn't have a problem recruiting officers. How do you make that pitch? How do you take somebody that's young that wants to serve their community? How do you be? How are you like, hey, this is what you can do. Here's what we can offer you, and here's how we can work together to make everybody's life that much better.
Right. Well, when you think about it, our younger generation now, when they get out of college, boots on the ground, they're looking for a career where they can just about make six figures coming out of school. And then you got to think about how much money these young people owe when they get out of school. You're talking about anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000 in financial aid loans, having to pay that money back, and then getting a job where you're not making the money to be able to pay your student loans back. So a lot of our younger generation are looking for those high-paying jobs.
Right.
Law enforcement is a career. It has to be in you. It's not a job that you decide, I think I'm just going to try out and be a police officer. You have to want to do it. You have to have the heart for it. So when our young people say, hey, I want to make a change in my community, I want to see some things change, I think law enforcement would be just that starting point for them. One person can sometimes make the difference on a call. And I think if they are curious about law in general, I think it's a good field to get into. But definitely, before I talk to someone and try to encourage them to come to the police department, I want to see where their mind is at first.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah.
Okay.
So if we can, Chief, let's talk crime statistics in our city. There have been a lot of, I would say, gun violence,
Yes.
number one. But then you also have, like you said, some domestic violence cases and things of that nature. Are there any like specific numbers that stand out? Anything that you can give us?
So, as far as crime is concerned, I hear a lot of people talking about, oh, crime is so bad. It's so bad. Crime is up, it's not down. But I guess if you're not in the law enforcement arena and you're not looking at the numbers, you're only looking at what's happening at the time. But there are more than one type of crime. You have embezzlements, you have assaults, you have just small misdemeanor crimes, petty larcenies,
Right.
trespassing. So if we had to go back in and look at some of those statistics on those particular type of offenses, they are down. We have not had the type of crime in some of the bigger cities where there are particular assaults every day on random people or murders for random people. The murders that we have had this year, in fact, we've had 10 murders this year. 8 we have actually made arrests on. 2 of them, we have the evidence at the crime lab. So once we get that evidence processed, then I think we'll be able to make those 2 arrests on those. And that will kind of close us out with at least making the arrest on the suspects who have committed the crimes. But as far as crime is concerned, just because one thing happens, it doesn't make it, I can't say the worst thing that happens because it
Right.
is bad,
Right.
but it's isolated. It's so isolated because people know each other. It's just not been a crime where people say, hey, I was shot in the leg by a random person I didn't even know. Each crime has been affiliated, whether it be domestic with their partner or a friend or somebody that they already had out with.
Yeah.
So crime is down. You have to look at the whole totality of it, not just one particular thing that happens.
Yeah. So you said a number 10,
Yeah,
right?
there was a
Is that
total
a
of 10.
is that compared to other places, whether it's a large city, small city, big state, little state, is 10 a big number?
10 is a very small number. I don't want to make comparisons to Jackson, JPD, but it's there every day. We're
Yeah,
seeing it on the news. If we're talking about crime, there are random crimes, and I think the chief over there is doing a wonderful job.
I
He has
agree.
a great plan in place right now, and he has brought in a lot of his officers who
Right,
left and came back.
right.
So I think they're gonna have a lot of boots on the ground and be able to solve a little bit more of the murders that they have. But compared to over here, I know that they are able to make some arrests, but every time we've had a murder, we've
Hmm.
been able to make an arrest behind it.
Yeah,
And even with our cold cases, and that's probably one of the most important things in my administration. Well, what's important to me is being able to solve some cold cases, and we are actively working on some cold cases, and we'll be soon bringing up some cases where we're going to be able to make some arrests.
mm,
I got a question. So I know that you emphasize making sure that your officers are well equipped with not only traditional law enforcement equipment, but also the latest in like tech. So what are some things you guys are doing to make the officer's job that much easier and or better?
So, one of the things that we are doing, and I think most agencies have, are body cams.
hmm,
Um, we need those body cams. I tell the guys all the time that body cam can actually save you. Um, we make sure that they have their body cams on, and now everything is not perfect. There have been some times where we may have had a glitch here, there, where we've had a problem with the body cam, but mostly they have worked and done what they've needed to do. Of course, we have AVLs in the cars. We're able to keep up with the officers to see where they are, just in case something were to happen. We
yeah,
will be able to pinpoint where they are, and 911 is actually involved with that as well. They have a it's a app that they have on their computers where they can actually see where the officers are, so they can sometimes send that officer who is in a closer area than the person who's actually working the beat, send an officer there much faster. um, our radios, probably sometime next year, we're probably going to have to go to new radios because technology has changed.
Right.
Old radios are phasing out. You're going to have radios that will actually have a telephone on them. They have the GPS on them. You'll actually be able to look at a screen on your radio if need be, to find different areas. If you're looking for something, GPS, you'll have be able to use it. So a radio is almost going to be just as important as a body cam.
And then we're part of the Miss Win network, so
Yes.
we're connected to all the other agencies
Ye-
throughout the state also.
yes.
Okay.
So we can actually hear other agencies, their radio traffic.
I guess that helps if there's something big that you have to collaborate on, like maybe highway patrol or maybe even the sheriff.
Yes, correct. Yes, whenever something major is going on, now we have the capability to hear and talk to one another. And we've changed it where it's plain radio. It's not using the 10 codes. We do use the 10 codes sometimes for certain things.
What's the 10 code?
10 codes would be if you ever heard officers say 10-4.
Oh, okay.
10-4
So
is
you have
actually,
different
yes,
codes for
yeah, they're
oh,
different codes. 10-4, we don't normally use that, but of course if we're talking to each other, that's just jargon for us. But the normal 10 codes that you would use where a citizens in the community, if we're talking 10 codes, they would know what we were talking about.
like
So
what they said 187 for like homicide or something like that.
right,
Oh,
in a
okay.
bigger city,
Okay,
yes.
okay, okay.
But it will be something different for us. But each agency had their own particular codes. So
Oh,
I worked in Bolton part time. Um, when I initially started working over there, I knew what our 10 codes were, but they were totally different from Bolton. So what the codes that I was using on the radio, their dispatch didn't know what I was talking about.
Wow, and we're
Yeah.
so close to Bolton. You would
Yes.
think it'd be some
You would think it
overlap or
would be the
something.
same.
Yeah.
It was different.
Hmm.
So we did go to plain radio, so plain talk on the radio. So I think that helped.
Okay. Okay.
So keeping that topic in play, the technology is the upgrade and bringing things to a more modern advancement. I guess has that been some of your push as chief to kind of bring the level of the equipment up to today's technology?
Yes. Um, of course, technology costs money.
Right.
We've applied for several different grants for some new equipment that I would love to have, especially for my investigative team, to make solving crime a lot more easier. I know everybody watches TV, Law and Order, or
Yeah,
the
CSI.
cops,
Done so much,
CSI.
guys.
Yes,
First 48.
yes,
Made your
all
job
of
so
that.
much easier.
exactly. So some of those things that they actually have on TV are some of the things that we're actually trying to get through grants, especially, like I say, working a crime scene. So I think once we get some of that type of technology, we'll be able to solve crime a little bit faster. One thing that we're actually having a problem with is, and I'm not going to say it's a problem, but I understand, is when we send evidence to the crime lab. I know sometimes people complain about, hey, you all made an arrest. Why haven't you all presented the case to the DA's office? But the crime lab they just don't service Vicksburg. You got Jackson, you got Sharkey, you
Right.
got Pearl, you got Brandon, you got all of these different other agencies that they have to process their crime scene, well, their evidence rather. So we have to take our turn. Though we may have a serious murder case, we just can't say, hey, process our stuff first
Right.
when you already have another agency that they're doing some work for. So we have to take a back seat sometime and wait. So it's not that we're not working that person's case, a particular case, or because we don't have the technology to do the things that they do. It's a broad range of things that they have that we don't. So we do have officers that have had a lot of training, but it's a matter of getting that particular type of equipment that they have. But right now, using a crime lab is the best that we can use for technology right now.
Let me ask you a question. So you were with domestic violence for years, right? Statistically, police officers are high on the list of perpetrators of domestic violence. How do you reconcile that and also have your officers enforce domestic violence? Like how do you train them to be like, hey, you know, how do they de-stress? How do they do this? Like, what's
Yeah.
that process of making sure that the people who are enforcing the law aren't the ones perpetrating against other people?
Because it sounds like, just from the outside, I've never had a desire to join law enforcement, but it sounds like a very, very stressful situation, regardless of your rank or job assignments daily. It just sounds like stress on a platter to me.
Right. And it is because sometimes you have to make split second decisions. Domestic violence is probably one of the most dangerous calls that the officers respond to because where domestic is concerned, it's almost like any common sense or any empathy that you would have goes out the door where the suspect is concerned, the perpetrator. You don't know where their mind is at that time. You can, with the training that we have, because we train all the time, de-escalation with our officers, and them being able to not have tunnel vision, because sometimes things happen and you only looking at it one way. We train to where you have to look at it from all sides of the story, but in making sure that the officers are very careful when they are working these particular cases. And as of late, and I don't want to say it's a trend, but as of late, most of the homicides are domestic violence related. Here in Vicksburg, we've had a lot lately. We've had several shootings where domestic violence is concerned. And I know a lot of people in the community are concerned about an uptick in crime, but those are particular crimes that you cannot predict. You just never know
Right.
when they are going to happen. When a person has made up their mind that they are going to assault their significant other, they're in their home. We're out here. So we don't know what's going on in a person's home. So coming to the scene and just being totally open minded with the training that they've had, I think we've been able to at least help some, but we've had to do what we needed to do at the time.
So, if we can, let's get to some really hot topics.
Oh,
Yeah, hotter than fish grease. And they're all Vicksburg related because that's what we aim to do on the VTV podcast is talk, all Vicksburg. There have been some instances lately, and they've made news like headlines. One in particular is a gun violence situation that happened at a local eatery here in Vicksburg. I don't want to say the name. I don't know legalities on that, but someone was shot. I don't know if they were in the building eating, if they were outside having, some parking lot situation going on. But can you kind of give us, maybe the scoop or some details regarding that? Because from what I've heard, and to be honest, it's a lot of rumor mill stuff. It may have been domestic violence.
Right. So I'm familiar with what you're talking about. In fact, I saw many people post on Facebook, and I've had dialogue with the officers and just other
Yeah.
people in the community who actually talked about that particular incident. But a lot of times people jump in and make assumptions, and they don't know the whole story.
Right.
It's always three sides to a story: your side, the other person's side, and the truth. Now, the truth definitely is going to come out when it goes to court. But in this particular incident, it just brought waves to the community because some people were outraged about why the particular business wasn't closed and another business was. Um, People don't know that just the day prior, one of the people that was involved had already been to the police department to make a complaint about her ex,
Really?
and we were actively working on something at that time. Just so happened the next day, it just carried on to a particular location.
Yeah.
So we were already aware of what that person was doing, but he just took action. So that's just another incident where domestic is concerned, where you can't predict, what's going to happen. He just took matters in his own hand, and he let his emotions get the best of him, and that's what happened. But the business had nothing to do with it, and it was a totally isolated incident. I can't recall saying that we have gotten a call to that location about anything. So it was no comparison to what they were comparing it to the other business,
Yeah.
where you've had to respond on more than one occasion.
Multiple occasions.
and,
Yeah.
and other things have happened there, where it comes to violence.
Yeah.
So for something to happen in one place doesn't mean that that business need to, to be shut down. Because even with the other business, there were several different ways that we went in trying to make sure that that was something that never happened. So it just so happened it did. But otherwise, if I wanted to compare it to Walmart and saying, because I know they were saying, well, this happened there, why didn't y'all close them down? If something happens at Walmart today, because we've been to Walmart before, because they've had physical fights inside of Walmart before.
Yeah, it gets a little crazy
Yeah,
at Walmart.
it does.
All over America.
And yeah, not just our Walmart, you're right.
Right.
And then you have people shoplifting on a daily basis, just
day.
about at Walmart.
oh yeah.
So if I had to make a decision on closing Walmart, it would only be because somebody is getting robbed or somebody has been killed at this particular Walmart on a weekly basis. I would be doing it for the community. I would be saying, hey, we need to get together and come up with a plan, because I don't want anybody to get hurt anymore. But that's not the case. There are totally isolated incidents when things have happened. We can't continue to let something happen and I not say anything. So I'm fair in what I do because I definitely don't want to. Uh, People have to make a living. We
Mm-hmm.
all do, and I don't want to hurt anybody in no shape, form, or fashion. But my job is to protect the citizens in this community, and that's what I intend to do.
Right.
Bringing it back to technology, I know can't really reveal locations, but there's been a lot of new technology popping up around town. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
So I had an opportunity to go to several different neighborhoods here in Vicksburg. Me and my team, we were advocating the NOLA camera system.
What is that?
NOLA, it's a video camera systems that we have been putting in certain neighborhoods where we've had high crime,
Okay.
where we are able to actually monitor those cameras.
Oh,
And not only are we monitoring the cameras, these cameras are out of New Orleans, and I want to say the University of New Orleans is where it's there. The headquarters is
okay.
housed.
Mm.
Okay.
So we of course had an opportunity to go and visit, and it just we were sold when we actually went there. But these cameras have the capability of detecting gunshots. We have an opportunity to get facial recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we can actually zoom in, zoom out in certain neighborhoods. We can isolate a particular person that is in the camera in the video and be able to identify who that person is. Um, we are going to have a center where we will house a few people that will be working in there, and they'll be able to watch the camera system in different neighborhoods. So if there is something particular going on, we will have access to recording it at the time and have the officers to respond, and we'll know who the suspects are before we actually get there. I was trying for people to get those cameras in the neighborhoods.
How do they do that? How do you?
So they would actually call to New Orleans to the NOLA camera system. Um, I don't have that particular number at the time, but if everybody is computer savvy, if you
Mm-hmm.
go on and you go to the NOLA camera system, they will actually pull up. It will actually pull up, and you have an opportunity to watch a video. And I think once they see the video that is attached with that camera system and how it works, it'll sell you just from the video. So I would love for people to just take the opportunity and look. Um, the camera systems have been doing such a tremendous job. We've actually been able to solve several crimes with the video footage that we've gotten off of our NOLA camera system. So we have just recently put up about 16 more cameras in the area, and we still have more to come. So you're going to see a lot of NOLA cameras throughout the city, but not every neighborhood is going to have them. But I would love the opportunity to go to their neighborhood. If they wanted to, they can actually call the police department, 601 and actually speak with me. We can set something up for me and some of my guys to come over. We can talk with them about what we are experiencing with the NOLA camera system and give them the opportunity to look at it and to speak with Brian, who is actually one of the management teams for the NOLA camera system,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can see if it's something that they actually want. So we are good with coming in any neighborhood to talk about what we're doing with the NOLA camera system.
I hate to break up this conversation, but I think we need to go to a break if that's okay.
I believe
So
so.
we can reset, and then we'll be back with Chief Jones and later.
So staying on the topic of the cameras, if you can, Chief, you mentioned that the NOLA cameras specifically can pinpoint gunshots or somehow help in figuring out, whether the shots were fired or something. How does that work? Because you hear conversation in our community about gun violence and what the PD is doing or what they should be doing. How do the cameras tie into that?
So the cameras have the what we call a shot spotter, and it detects. Well, it can actually tell. You know, a car can backfire. It
Mm-hmm.
knows what it's if a car has backfired or if it's actually a gunshot.
Oh, that's
It's just
impressive.
yeah. It is just that um, the technology is just great. It's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as that's concerned, We are definitely advocating people to lock their doors and not leave their guns inside of the vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is one of the ways that our youth have been able to get a lot of guns
Yeah.
and have them out on the street. Is by getting into unlocked vehicles.
Yeah.
So definitely lock your vehicles. And even if you decide that you don't want to lock your door because you would rather not lock your door and not keep anything in it because you don't want anybody. Because I hear people say, "Well, I don't want them to bust my window out, so I just leave my car unlocked." Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, if you do decide to do that, don't leave any change in there. Don't leave anything of value. So if they do go in your car, it's nothing for them to get, but
Right.
close the door and leave. But for your weapon, and people are so upset a lot of times once they call us and say, "Hey, I left my 9 millimeter in my glove compartment and it was fully loaded." Well, you just put $1 million into some kid's hand. We've noticed that you could leave a laptop in the car, you could leave your purse, put a gun in there. They're gonna leave that purse and that laptop.
And
They're
get the
only gonna
gun.
take the gun.
Mm-hmm.
They will leave valuables in the car because they want that weapon. So we
Mm-hmm.
definitely tell people, please, whatever it is you decide to do, but just make sure that you get that vehicle out of the car.
Yeah.
We've conducted several different what we call checkpoint areas where we are actually able making traffic stops in certain locations. Um, and juveniles are in vehicles, and we are able to get guns off the street, as well as drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the end thing now for the kids are pills and marijuana. So if we're not getting a gun off of them, it's pills or marijuana. So just being in certain areas where the cameras are, being able to see them get out the car and run, or just see them throw something out of the car and we not notice it. The camera is there. It's almost that police officer that we need.
Mm-hmm.
The camera is.
But it is a tool.
It's a
It
tool.
doesn't replace a
It
police
doesn't
officer.
replace
Okay.
nothing. People say I don't like the police. I never call the police. Well, you don't need us till you need us.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need us till you need us.
I've heard that before.
Right.
That's true.
I know we were talking about youth. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
What I heard that there's something going on between the government agencies about the youth issue that we have in town. Like, what is that?
So a while ago, we had a young man to be shot in a certain area, very young. It sparked such a not necessarily outrage in the community, but it sparked enough energy between everybody where they knew that we needed to do something for our youth in the community. So we all rallied together, sat down to the table and say, "Hey, what is it that we can do together as a team?" Well, of course, you're going to need the school. We need the school to help us because they are the ones that could give us the information. They know what kids are actually having problems. Of course, we need the Warren Judge Sutherland for the Warren County Detention Center. She knows who's coming through her court and what type of problems these particular children are having. Of course, we know some of the things because we deal with these kids as well, getting out on calls. So you had a collaboration of all of us, including the Warren County Sheriff Department, um, some of the pastors in the community. We all sat down to the table and say, "Hey, we need to come up with something for these kids to do." So we got together and formed the Youth Development Center. I know a lot of people aren't really familiar with it, but it's an opportunity for our youth to have somewhere to go. This center, we have laptop computers inside of the center where if they had to do homework, the laptops are available for them if they wanted to apply for jobs. And not only just for the youth, and the adults in the community as well, they can come to the center. But the center also offers help for the youth that may have some mental challenges or have some issues at school where they may be being bullied and they want to. Sometimes kids want to commit suicide when they're being bullied and they don't know which direction to go in. You have kids that are having problems with their parents. So the Youth Development Center also helps not only that child, the parent has to be involved also. So if that is an issue at home, both of them will be able to get help. So you got a lot of stakeholders in the community that have reached out and offered their help. So whatever particular issue that your child is having, There is a particular agency that they will send that child to. Um, it's paid for through a voucher, so your child will actually be able to get the help that they need. Now, a lot of parents complain about, hey, my son is just not acting right. My daughter's just not acting right. I'm trying to do the best that I can. They need a mentor. It's not meant for every child to go to jail because they're bad. There are just other avenues. There are programs where they have mentors for the males and the female. And we will try to make sure that they at least stay in these programs for about 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, not to say that they have to stop in the program after those 12 months, but we definitely will work hand in hand with that youth for that amount of time.
Let me ask you: are there some like metrics that you guys use to make sure that the agencies you guys are sending these kids to are effective, or they're doing at least what they say they're doing?
Right.
Yeah.
So they're definitely going to be monitored, but each particular agency does a certain thing. So if a child has issues where they just need somebody to be mentored, we wouldn't send them to this particular agency.
Right.
There is someone specific for this child. That way we know that they're getting the help that they need because it's one particular thing that they need help with. But not only that child, the parent too. Because
Mm-hmm.
when your kids go through things, parents, we go through it too.
Yeah.
We feel what they feel. Though they may be out in the street doing things that they don't need to be doing, just know that mom and dad feel that pain too.
Yeah.
I spoke with Mr. Smith a couple of days ago. He's the liaison for the police department through youth development.
Yes.
And he stated, it's important for people to understand um, exactly what you said. Sometimes the parents have to be really invested in the kid to even seek out, the agency, youth development. But he also mentioned that he was hoping to just develop a better appearance through the police department in the community to say, okay, well, it's okay to come and talk to, an officer. And it's not that situation where I don't talk to police, but sometimes police do need to be involved in many situations. Not just something that's violent, but a kid may be struggling with something mentally. So he emphasized that just the other day. We talked about it, and I think that's a good thing for our community.
Right.
So I'm hoping for really big input from the Youth Development Center.
Yes. At the Youth Development Center, I think is just going to be just that niche that we need to bridge the gap between community and law enforcement. Dr. Susie Calvert is actually the director over there, a wealth of knowledge. And actually, the Youth Development Center is the old Chamber of Commerce. So I know a lot of people say, where is that? Where is that? It's the old Chamber of Commerce building. So if you all would just want to stop by and just find out what they offer, the door is open for you all, for people in the community to just go. We actually talked at National Night Out just, 2 days ago? At
Yep.
National Night Out. So she's planning on doing a grand opening. So a lot of people in the community will be able to come and see as well. If they just don't decide to stop by then, definitely come in when she does the grand opening. And I think once they see what she offers, and they'll know that there's going to be hope for that child.
Right. Speaking of children, another hot topic was a supposed, and if you can see me, I'm doing air quotes, supposed kidnapping
Oh yeah.
in our community. What exactly is that about? Because again, we discuss all things Vicksburg.
And they
And-
kind of called you out by name.
Rumor mill as well. You can't help but that churns a lot. What can we discuss here about that situation?
Well, it is definitely an ongoing investigation, and I could only give you bits and pieces of it. But again, when I said earlier, sometimes people chime in for the
Yep.
negative and don't know the entire story. No
Right.
different than we spoke about where the other incident took place, where we were already aware of
Right.
what was going on, and it just ended up happening, and it ended up being a domestic issue. This situation just kind of spun out of control, where people only listen to one side of the story. So again, I it, I can take the biting and the backlash because it's my job. But I can only express to you, sometime you need to wait to get the entire story before
Yeah.
you just believe what one person says.
Right.
It's that whole three sides to a story thing
Yes,
you were talking about.
correct. Your side, that person's side, and the truth.
Right.
I can say that the Vicksburg Police Department solely did the job that they were supposed to do. Not only our agency was involved, you had the um, Warren County Sheriff Department / Warren County Youth Court that was involved. It was a lot of agencies that had some input on what took place here. Just so happened the Vicksburg Police Department ended up having to take the lead.
Yeah.
But there is a such thing as a parent kidnapping their child. No doubt about it. Not just here in Vicksburg. It has happened in other places.
Hear about it
And
all the time.
yes,
Right.
and there are other. I mean, parents have been arrested for it, for taking their children. If there has been a ruling where the judge says that you, parent A and parent B, are not allowed right now to have custody of your child, and we have taken custody at this time until we can resolve this issue, that means you cannot have your children no matter what it is. Now, I love my kids. We all
too.
do. We love our children.
Yeah.
But because of the situation, the judge made a decision to take parental rights at that time.
Yeah.
So it just spun out of control with them saying that that there was no warrant for this particular person, and it was. And that they were very angry because how is it that you can get arrested for taking your children? Well, I just explained why. There would be no earthly reason for the Vicksburg Police Department to get involved with a custody hearing, and we normally don't, with a custody hearing where people are battling it out over their children. We only get involved when it becomes criminal.
Right.
And that was the only reason why the police department got involved, because it was criminal. We did our job. I did my job as the police chief. A decision was made, and we moved forward with it. Um, just so happened that it took place in another state. So they did what they were supposed to do as a police agency. When there are warrants that are issued, no different than if we had a murder suspect that was in Chicago, they could have been in Texas, Omaha, wherever it is. If we send that agency a warrant, they're going to execute that warrant for us. And the agency did what they were supposed to do. Ultimately, in the end, I'm glad that that person did turn themselves in.
Yeah.
And now we're working on the stage of trying to fix what was broken. So, and it's just going to take a little time. And I think once they go to court and everything is settled, I think things will be a little bit better. But sometimes before you go and make allegations
Yeah.
and say things, you need to let the court handle it. Again, when police get involved, it's because it's criminal. We would have never been involved with it if it just would have been a custody issue or something civil.
Right.
Yes.
Clarity
So basically, don't talk out the side of your neck.
out the side of your
Right.
neck.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Because in the end, all the things that you say, when when the people in the community actually find out what have actually taken place, and they've listened to what you said, sometimes you can kind of feel, well, wow, I made a judgment when I didn't even know this. Oh, well, if I would have known that it was like that in the beginning, I would have never put my 2 cents in it.
Makes
So
sense.
you got to hear the whole story first. Now, I could get on this mic right now and talk for about 20 or 30 minutes as to what took place with the case. But of course, it's pending
Yep.
in court.
Right.
So I can only say small bits and pieces. But people in the community, I can only express to you, you got to hear the whole story first and know
Get the
that
facts.
it's more than, it's 3 sides to a story. You got to hear it first. And it was not the way that that person put it. It was not that way.
Right.
They made it more than what it was. I don't know too many people. Now, you got good police and you got bad police. I can admit that. But I can tell you certainly that We don't want to hurt anybody. I know Vicksburg police don't.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to hurt anybody. And most agencies who care about their department don't want to hurt people either. But it does happen. But I can only express to you when you are innocent, when especially if I haven't done something that somebody is blaming me for, I'm going to be there at their front door to say, hey, let me explain to you why I did what I did. Or if I did something I wasn't supposed to something I wasn't supposed to do, tell me.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know. Innocent people don't run too fast,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you confident in yourself and you know that you haven't done what a person said that you did, then you're gonna be willing to talk about it.
I agree. That's true. So we could talk forever, Miss Penny. And I would love to. We're just limited with time. But this is what I wanted to speak about briefly before we let you go, because I know you're a busy person. This is considered, correct me if I'm wrong, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and you're an advocate for supporting that and being able to work through domestic violence issues and understanding how important it is to have a clear head when it comes to interactions between couples, family members, things of that nature. Can you give us some insight as to why this is a important topic for you?
So domestic violence is very important to me because I was a victim. I
Really?
know, yes, I was a
Oh,
victim of domestic violence. I was. Um, Enough for me to never forget it.
Mm-hmm.
I can forget the pain, some of the pain that I endured,
Yeah.
but I don't want to forget where I came from.
Right.
Um, I want to be able to help other women know and feel like that there's help out there. In the past, I would say I'm gonna use the '70s for example, the '60s and the '70s. There was domestic violence going on then. In fact, domestic violence has probably been going on since there's been a world,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just been given a name.
Right.
In the '60s, you didn't have too many women out here working. They had to accept what that man did.
Mm-hmm.
The men usually went out, they made the check, and they paid the bills, and the woman did what that man said do. But now it's a little bit different. You
Right.
got women that are out here doing it. You don't have too many two-parent homes anymore. So women have to be the strong one. So
Mm-hmm.
when they are involved in relationships, it's just a little bit different. We have places where they can actually go. In the past, if something like that were to happen, you had to stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't go over to your mama's house.
Right.
You couldn't go stay with your sister and her husband, and you and your kids.
Right.
You stayed at home and you took it.
Right.
So now times have changed where there's help with getting women to a better place, and for them to know that they don't have to take it. It's help out there.
Okay. Cool. Again, I would love to talk to you forever. Because you
It
are
was good.
VIP. You VIP to me
It
in
was a
this
real
city.
good conversation.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I want to thank the both of you for joining the podcast today.
Always.
Chief Penny Jones is here. Special co-host Adrian.
Yeah.
And
I'll be back
I hate
sometime.
I hate to wrap it up, but we want to thank all our listeners and our viewers
So
for joining us
for
today.
our listeners, it is my plan to have a town hall meeting so we can have the people to come to talk about their issues in the community, to be able to ask us questions.
Okay.
So I will give a time and a date soon. So
It'll be like
just
on
like
Facebook or something like that.
right, yes,
Okay.
I'll put it on Facebook, or you all can put it out on VTV for me.
We'll
Will
put
it be
it out
live
everywhere.
on Facebook too?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, to give people an opportunity if they want to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you may think it's just such a big deal when we can actually break it down and say this is what it is. So I would love to have an opportunity to give people a chance to ask questions.
Oh, that's
Okay.
awesome.
When is this going? When do you plan to have this?
So probably within the next month or so.
Okay. Soon as you get a date, we'll publish it, post it, and be there. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this has been another episode of VTV the podcast. I'm your host James. Please be sure to like, subscribe, follow on Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, and soon to be Instagram, hopefully. And don't forget TikTok. Y'all have an amazing day. Talk to you soon.